I wish to welcome you once again to the Digital History Students channel, where we agreed would discuss matters regarding history. And I wish to welcome you all from the general elections that have been recently concluded. I encourage you to embrace whatever came out of the elections, and life moves on. Today I want to discuss voter apathy. Voter apathy, low voter turnout in Uganda election. But before we arrive at that, I want us to ask ourselves, what has been the behavior of Ugandans towards the elections ever since maybe 1986? What has been the pattern? What has been the sequence? Because whatever has happened today or whatever happened in these elections did not start in this election. Ladies and gentlemen, I take pride to bring to your attention that in 1996, the first elections after the coming of the government of President Yoweri Museveni, the first election, Uganda registered a voter turnout of 72%. 72% of the registered voters then decided to come out and vote. And I think that has since been the highest voter turnout. In 2001, it reduced to 70.3% of the registered voters. In 2006, it reduced further to 69%. In 2011, it further reduced to 59.2%. Then in 2016, it rose again somewhat to 67.6. Then 2021, 57%. It again reduced. Actually, it dropped drastically to 57%. Then in the recently concluded election, 52%. What does that indicate? As a history scholar, it gives me a point of worry. It gives me a point to start thinking that Ugandans are getting fatigued with the electoral system. Ugandans are losing interest. And if interest is lost in the democratic process, what happens next? That's the question I want to ask all of you. But what could have caused that? How did we arrive here? Are people really boycotting elections? Or even is it a protest vote? What could have caused this? Such incidences could have been caused by barriers to participation, including complicated registration processes. If the process to registration to be a voter is complicated, someone might decide not to vote. But the question is that process complicated in Uganda? The answer is no. I actually noticed that even though someone didn't register to be a voter, the moment they had an ID, the moment someone registered for an ID and they clock the age of 18, they would become voters automatically, because I didn't register anywhere as a person, but I received the code. I received the voter location slip. So meaning I was supposed to vote. So that one is disqualified. The fact is there is no complicated registration process. 2, limited access to polling locations. The fact is that polling locations or polling stations are now more accessible than before. Almost every polling station was divided. It was given children and grandchildren. There are no longer one polling stations per village, but several. Polling stations increased to up to 55,000 polling stations. You could find polling stations of only 200 voters, meaning polling stations were accessible and were near. Restrictive voting laws, which again I want to say no, doesn't exist. There are no laws, as far as I know, that restrict voting in Uganda. Everyone can vote, so long as you clock age 18. That is the only restriction. So I don't believe that there are restrictive voting laws. So I want us to rule out the concept or the idea that there are barriers to participation. Where we go might be or might lie the real cause of this. 2, disillusionment with the candidates. Voters getting disillusioned or feeling that their candidates fail to represent their interests. That is key. Many times candidates come, campaign, do what they promise a lot, heaven on earth, but they go through and they go to whatever offices they've been vying for. What they do is different. So when the voters feel like these people, even if we vote for them, they won't do what we want, they cease to vote. Voter apathy. 2, perceived ineffectiveness of voting. Voters now in Uganda think that the voting process is not effective enough to bring what they want, be it change in government, be it change or service delivery, be it what. So they feel like we should, whether you vote or not, it's the same thing. Their votes count less, or they weigh less. So if at the end of it, they decide to leave it. Let's not vote for that. They leave that. Then, to the youth now. Some youth feel that there is a divergence, there is a very big difference between their needs and the political agenda, and therefore decide not to vote. Yes. You see, most of the times people vote because of what has been promised. Someone says, I'm going to work on that road, the president, I'm going to work on that road, I'm going to increase PDM money, I'm going to do this. Yes, it is interesting, and that might be the need of the youth. But at the end of it, what is on the political agenda? You find that the political agenda reads different. Limited trust in the electoral system. Could this be Uganda's problem? Limited trust in the Electoral Commission, where people believe that there is rigging. People believe that there are predetermined results before the electoral process. Could you participate in such an election where you even know? So some Ugandans might have that perception and they therefore refuse to vote. Then there is a perceived lack of fairness by the Electoral Commission. When people think that the Electoral Commission is not transparent enough, or they think the Electoral Commission is biased towards a certain candidate. After the 2021 elections, owing to a number of irregularities that had been seen in the elections, there is a member of parliament from Nakaseke, I won't mention the name. He came and made a rhetoric. I might paraphrase, but he said, whoever shall participate in the 2026 elections organized by NRM cadres shall be the most celebrated fool of the 21st century. I see that. That highlighted a mistrust. It highlighted a perceived lack of fairness in the Electoral Commission. The thought that the commission is biased simply because whoever is selecting members of commission is again a candidate in the election. So some Ugandans might, I emphasize might, take that direction. Then we have, as Uganda, we also have a history, a bad history of malpractice. Yes, we have a history of malpractice. Almost every election that has been conducted here, let me begin with the 2001, has been petitioned. Yes. There are always claims that someone rigged elections. 2021 elections, after you've been hearing it, the president who won the election claiming that he was rigged. Yes. If the whole president can claim that his votes were rigged, what does that mean? That indeed there is election malpractice. So if the Ugandans, as we went to the 2026 elections, saw no change, they saw no change in the laws regarding or governing elections, they saw no change in the Electoral Commission itself. So what would they expect? They expected the same rigging. In history, we say history does not repeat itself, but it is repeated by people that have failed or that have deliberately refused to learn from the past. So people feared that history might be repeated, the history of malpractice. Then lastly, I want to talk about the broken promises by the elected leaders. You elect someone because they had a very beautiful manifesto, this one might work. At the end of it, they deliver nothing. They promise heaven and deliver hell. So, to someone who learns, if this happens consistently, if it happens consistently, someone who thinks they've learned a lesson of their life and therefore refuse or cease to vote again. Disclaimer: this video is made specifically for educational purposes. I am not politicking here, but I am educating the nation. Thank you so much. Continue to like the channel, continue to subscribe, watch, comment at times, share. Yes, and we grow together. For God and my country, love you all. Bless you.